Hi, family. It is great to be with you all on this Thursday, and I am so excited for you all to meet Jamie. I first spoke with Jamie maybe a little over a year ago, and I had seen her content before. And so before we go, I want to make sure to point you in her direction. She lives on another platform now, but I think you're just going to love her. And through all of our discussions about gang stalking and targeted individuals and the things that we've been through, Jamie has some insider experience and knowledge that I don't have. And I very much trust her to come on this channel and to share her story. And I purposely did not in advance go back over her content because I wanted to be a very authentic conversation. So we are running a little bit early. And so I know you all were thinking 8:30. Jamie was moving today and was so gracious to do this and to honor this commitment to us. And so I'm going to add Jamie now. I hope I do this right because I generally don't do interviews. So you all, this is Jamie. And I hope, can everyone hear me okay? I don't know that I can hear you, Jamie.
You can't hear me?
I might have to not use headphones. Let me see.
How
Are we better now?
now I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Are we all
Yes.
good? You're dealing with Jamie's an OG. So I just want to thank you again, since I didn't have my microphone on, for being here on this very busy day for you, and just to thank you for everything you've done in this community. And I just think that this community is going to love you, and you have some insider knowledge that I don't really have. So I didn't go back over your story because I wanted it to be authentic when we spoke, but I remember some of it, some of the highlights. So if you could maybe just tell us, let's start with the basics, like how you identified that gang stalking was even happening, and then we can kind of get into the deeper parts of it, and we can start from there.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you, Stephanie, for your boldness and your courage for speaking out about this topic. And I also apologize that I don't have my studio set up and I'm on my phone rather than in my studio. But you can literally see, like, I have like boxes. There's like,
God bless you for coming.
So I'm not like my normal setup self, but the message is still the message. And the truth of the matter is that people are suffering from being targeted, being gang stalked, and it is because I believe of our purpose in the end time prophetic army. I believe that the Lord lets us see, the Lord, and I'm talking about Jesus Christ, lets us see things that other people can't see, but they will see. Definitely. And I do believe it is a mix of the spiritual and the technological things that have to do with it. I am not a huge techie person. I was more in the spiritual side because the people who were targeting me were part of a satanic cult. They were Freemasons. And so I'm very familiar with the spiritual side, the occultish side. But as far as like the technological, I don't have great knowledge of it, but I do believe that they use technological advances against us. Absolutely. It's been shown, it's been proven. It's all coming out now. And I want to say that I am grateful for the things that I went through because I feel like now that everything is coming out, we will be able to direct people to the right answers, because the public now, I feel like I call them the public as in like not targeted individuals, are going to be able to
like earth people kind of.
Yeah. Yes, we'll be able to start to see. And mine started probably back in like 2010, and it was kind of when I was riding the fence, I call it. I was like in my addiction really bad, and just because you're in addiction doesn't mean that those are the only people targeted, because people who are not in
Right.
addiction are also targeted. But that is when it came upon me. I was told that it was because I was, being a woman in addiction. I was also in sex work, because that's, how I supported my addiction. And I was told that, the reason that the things were happening to me, and the things I was going through, was because I was disposable. And it was a group of Freemasons, and also, I believe that they were Satanists. So they definitely got me at a very vulnerable time. I had just had my daughter, and I was addicted to pain pills. So I had so much guilt and shame and condemnation for having a baby while I was, addicted to pain pills, taking pain pills while I was pregnant. And it was during that time where, I had my daughter. My daughter got given, by the court to my family. And my kid's dad was hooked on heroin really bad. And one day I literally was just approached by like some guy riding down the road, and he was with a neighbor that was in the neighborhood where my family lived. And he said, "Hey, my name's so and so, do you want to come party?" And of course, like, guilt, shame, condemnation, baby daddy just got sent, back away. Of course I wanted to do something to numb the pain, to not feel the things that I was feeling. And in that, I got taken into this bondage with drugs. And basically I was with them, with this group of people, for about 3 years, where they used um drugs to basically control me. And it wasn't like they held a gun to my head and was like, "You can't leave." It was more like they were like, we're giving me an endless supply of opiates. And then it was like, "Well, I don't want to do this. I want to go home. I want to go see my children." And they would, shake a pill bottle at me like, "Oh, really? Do you really want to leave?" And so that
Ooh.
was the horror of, what I was going through.
I think that you touched on a couple of really critical things. And one is because after speaking with, hundreds of other targeted individuals and interacting with thousands of them, they do seem to strike at a vulnerable time. I also, part of my story was, and I have to be careful, of course, because we're on this platform, but a drug induced incident where I was exploited. And so I called a hotline, and I woke up on a ventilator. They gave me too much of whatever, that GHB, whatever substance. And but what the reason I bring this up now is because I later went to work for survivor agent, a couple of agencies that helped survivors of human trafficking, and it is so prevalent among females who are either in that industry. It's like this cross section. And I don't know between predators and, again, the satanic, the occult, the Freemasons, the trafficking. It's just, I think it's just all, it feels like a magnet for the enemy. All of those factors, preying on you when you're vulnerable, and kind of striking at that time, and then causing trauma, so that there is that shame and degradation, and you lose motivation to get back up out. And I can say, after having worked with survivors, that it's almost an anomaly when somebody recovers fully, embraces, recovery, or whatever that looks like for them. And because there's such a pile of trauma by then. And so, one thing that I didn't recognize until I was looking back at my experience was the witchcraft component. Now, I feel extremely naive now because all of the signs were there. Like, I lived not far from, and I won't say where you are, but not far from there. And, you know, now that I know more and I look back, I'm like, how did I not realize that this is, even therapists were saying, like, does this person wear black all the time? Are you noticing rituals? Because all of these things that I'm telling them that were going on, they had put together. This is satanic. This has to do with ritualistic abuse. But I didn't know anything about witchcraft back then. And I know that you actually, I remember one of your videos, you had said you had even been married to somebody practicing that. And so I wondered how that played into your experience. And it's also, clear to me now that it's all kind of part of the same spiritual manipulation and just throwing everything at you, spiritually, carnally, and all of that. And so if you could give us some insight into that piece of it, and how that, did you always know that was a part of it? How did that come to your attention?
So there was this one point in my journey where I was living in this house and there were these two sisters, and I didn't realize it at the time because they said that they used to be black witches. They said they used to be. But there was, meth use. They had a father who was dying of hepatitis C, and they were doing, there was like a lot of candles, and they were basically just like, it was interesting because it was a family. So it was a family, and there was just a rotation of women going through this rotation. And I started to notice like that these people just acted very strange. And I grew up in a Catholic background,
Me
so I
too. Me
knew
too.
I knew about exorcism and I knew about holy water, you know what I mean? But I didn't know about this part. I didn't know about people who could literally change forms. I didn't know about people who literally could implement dreams into you while you were sleeping. I didn't know about people, who did, different hand things like hand signals and stuff, and like what that meant. I knew when I looked at it and they were doing these hand signals, I could see snakes in between their hands and nobody else could see it. And of course, we know that that is a symbol for witchcraft. And I think that that
Of
was
course,
just
yeah.
God allowing me to see these things. And so I went around, and of course, I slept with, from the women to the men to the couples, whatever it took to get me my dope, right? But to a point where I started to realize there's something very strange going on here. To a point where I literally would pretend like I was high. Like they would give me like something to put in my arm and I would just like eat it instead because I'd be like, like I'm not
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
need to watch. Like there's something going on, you know what I mean? I believe they tried to give me some hot shots and it didn't work. Um and it was strange because it was like they would say the same things. Like I would be with one person one day and they would say like a specific word in a specific accent, and then I would be with someone else and they would say that same word in the same accent, and I
Yeah,
would
what
say
is
like,
with the accent thing? That is the
yeah,
oddest thing. Yeah.
so strange, so strange. And I started journaling, and I was just journaling and journaling and journaling, because I didn't understand what was going on, and they were all on computers and headsets, which was also very strange to me because like I don't under I didn't understand like what are they doing. And so what came to me meeting the person that I married was that in my journal one day, in this house full of orgies and witchcraft and trafficking women, I opened my journal and it said the word Emmanuel. And I was like, who is Emmanuel and why is he writing in my notebook? And another day, a couple days later, I opened it again and someone had wrote Emmanuel. And I'm like, who is Emmanuel? Like, what is going on here? And then it happened a third time and it said, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, his name is Emmanuel. And I was, I thought I was like gangster at the time. And I'm like, I don't know who this Emmanuel is, but we're about to fight. If he keeps touching my stuff, like we're about to go at it.
Right.
And like 3 days later, one of the men, it was one of the nephews from the house who was my boyfriend. And I say that in air quotes because if you had dope in your pocket, you were my boyfriend. He took me to my mom's house so that I could get some clothes. And he got really angry with me because I had said something to the neighbor. I think I asked him for like a cigarette or something like that. And he got really angry with me. And so when I came out of my mom's house, I went to walk across the car, which was parked right in front of the garage. And I went to walk across the car so that I could get in the driver's seat because I knew he was angry and I didn't want him driving my car while he was angry. And when I walked across the car, he hit the gas and he ran me over. I mean, ran me over into the house. He drove into the house, like went through the house. And somehow, I don't know how, angelic assistance.
I'm gonna say, you know how, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
He picked me up and he threw me in the car and took off with me. My mom was calling, the police were calling, everybody in the neighborhood thought I was dead because there were witnesses. They saw it. And finally he ended up bringing me back to my mom's house. And when you're in these situations, your mind just doesn't work right. It's just not, functioning correctly. And I remember the police saying to me, did he do this on purpose? And I was like, why would he do this on purpose? Like
Right.
this is my boyfriend. Why would he do that? And they were like, ma'am, do you see the skid marks? Like they were like, we have, there were skid marks that he slammed on the gas, and I was just like, what? Like, so just in a fog. And so they ended up taking him and bringing him somewhere, back to his house. I ended up staying home at my mom's, where my children were, where my family was. And I had some minimal injuries. I think I had like a pulled muscle on my stomach or something like that. And that was it, which is
Wow.
wild. And then a few weeks later, like maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, the lady across the street had a son who was coming out of jail. He was coming out of a rehabilitation program through the jail. And so I was outside and I met him and he had a Bible. And he literally opened it up to the book of Isaiah. And it said, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, his name is Emmanuel, God with us.
No
And
way.
I was like, oh my goodness, God was writing in my journal. And it was just so unbelievable to me. And so, of course, I attached to that man very quickly. And he, him getting out of jail or whatever, he, went back to, doing drugs and all these things. But in that, one day he prayed over me. We actually got in an argument, which this is so crazy. We got in an argument because I was still trying to like put, drugs in my arm. He didn't do that. He only did them, orally. And he started praying over me and speaking in tongues, which is something I had never heard before. Like as a Catholic, I don't know nothing
Right.
about speaking in tongues. Like what is that? You know what I mean? And he literally started praying over me, speaking in tongues, because he was so upset because I was trying to, put that stuff in my arm. And I heard something, scream, and I heard something come out of my ear, like scream out of my ear. And I heard the word pistis. And I was like, what is that? And like he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and I said, who's screaming? And he said, you're screaming. And I was like, what? And what I found out later is that the word pistis in Greek is actually used in the Bible when Jesus heals the demoniac, and he says to the demoniac, pistis, which means believe, have faith. And the demoniac got healed. And I will tell you, from that day on, it was like I woke up. I woke up. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh, the sun is shining. Why am I not at my parents with my children? You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah, yeah.
like something happened in my brain. And because of this incident that happened, I thought that this man was my savior, right? So I thought that he was like God, you know what I mean? And he was not. And he did, like, use that. I'm still forever grateful for what happened, for that
Yeah, I
experience,
mean, God used him regardless,
regardless.
Yeah,
Yes.
regardless.
Yes. And that's how I ended up
Just
marrying
how,
him.
everything, and we talk about that a lot on here, how God will use anything and use what is intended for our harm, for our good. And that is an amazing story. I hadn't heard that. I know and I know you'll be okay with this, because a lot of people are going to wonder and think, and we'll get into your comments for sure. I had said it for 8:30 knowing you were busy. So that's why maybe a few people aren't here yet, but a lot of people are going to wonder, and you probably even like had to sort through it yourself, like which parts of this were potentially induced by a substance, and which parts were, that this is real. I know that if I had any inclination, and this isn't my story we're telling today, but it had this effect on me that I had to have all my wits about me. And I had never been offered so many substances in my entire life as when I was trying to flee. And I kept thinking, and I so desperately wanted relief for everything that was, going on. But I thought I have to have my wits about me. And what I'm saying is that even with a clear head, I would, in my journal, write down, this is what I know is real. This is what I know for sure. I had 3 columns. This is what I know for sure. This is what I think is happening. And this is what I suspect might be happening. Like, I had to do that even without substances. So I know there'll be a lot of people out there that would be inclined to just brush it off as, and before we even came on, I posted that we were going live, and that already somebody had commented that it was just a delusion, which we're accustomed to this with gang stalking in general. It doesn't affect me. But how were you able to sort out? And then I also want to touch on what you said about the I started to say gentleman, probably not a gentleman, but the person driving the car that hit you, and how hard it is to come to realize that people are capable of this. I think that's something we all struggle with, even when we're shown the truth, is not being able to accept it, because who could be that calculating? And I think I stayed in a dangerous relationship and in situations thinking, they wouldn't do that. These people wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do this. Like, nobody's capable of that. Like, that's just on the news or something, And so, yeah, how did you sort out for yourself? This is for sure. Other than just, I mean, I'm sure you asked yourself those questions at some point with everything going on, or was it just, and another thing too, I wanted to follow up on was the waking up. That seems to be very common among us as well, is that sense of I had that same thing, only it was like 2.5 years into it. It felt like this veil was lifted and everything was clear. So if you could just, I know I threw a lot back at you, but for sure, like people are going to wonder, is this just some kind of drug induced, delusion, and how you sorted that out for yourself?
For sure. So, number one, I kept that journal for several years. So I literally had proof that there was this writing in my journal. So I know I didn't, it wasn't just a delusion. I had gone to jail, and I obviously wasn't using drugs in jail. So like, and I had kept that journal. It was there. And understanding that these people are capable of this, like you have to understand that Satan's strategy, the ultimate goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. Steal, kill, and destroy. And
Like for
that's
real. I mean, we
for
talk about
real.
that on here. Like, and these people carry those same characteristics. Their goal is no different. Like, I
Mhm.
don't ever underestimate evil or people being influenced by evil ever again. And it's a hard truth to wake up to, the
Absolutely.
reality of that. Yeah.
Mhm. And I thought, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went in and out of the mental institution because I kept telling, my family, like, there are these men in these black hoods and black robes, and they do stuff to me while I'm sleeping. And, like these things happen. And my family's like, oh, no, no, you're just on drugs. You're just on drugs. Oh, well, hey, let's look at the Jeffrey Epstein files. Hmm.
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh, you're
Yes. Which
like,
is which is giving us such a glimpse into the network. I've done videos on this. Like we've been screaming into the void about this orchestrated evil, this network of evil perpetrators. And I know something that even my audience often debates or tosses around, because we do know there are documented government programs that orchestrated mind control, and we know that, even like you said, I've never experienced V2K or RNM, but like directed energy. I mean, this is all very much now scientifically proven, and I am the last person to gaslight anybody on anything after what I myself have been through. But so maybe you can help me explain how, because my response is always that governments and secret societies and organizations, and even certain people will say law enforcement is complicit, all of these, and how all of these various organizations, governments, and societies can be complicit in this, and yet still at the top of that, it being orchestrated by evil. I kind of look at it like puppets on a string a little bit in my mind, or like a pyramid of power, and they're just seeing the carnal part, like the front facing part. And I also know it's only God can open somebody's eyes. So I don't get into debates about it, but maybe just your explanation of how that all works together might be different than hearing my voice, week after week.
sure. Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that I first started to see that there was a different kind of network when I was working in my addiction, um SW. And I had met some very high up people, some like lawyers, judges, police, definitely sheriffs, law enforcement, like they were all my clients. And that's when I started to do like the ritual stuff with them. Like I didn't know, like I'm literally just trying to get money for crack, okay? Like I don't
Right,
know what I'm
right.
trying to do. No, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to, and they were having me do these things where, these things like, and even to them, sometimes to them rather than them doing stuff to me, you know what I mean? Because it has to do with taking of the innocent.
Yes, yes.
which is what you
Agreed.
see all over the
Right.
news now in the files. And so, and I remember when I was like this is all you want, this is all I have to do, like you know what I mean, like this is okay,
Yeah.
sure, like I'll do that to you if that's what you want, and I remember them saying like, yeah, we want you to do this to all of us. And they said, yeah, we're on this like specific, like they called it the dark web. And they said to me, there are thousands of us. And I was just like, okay, like
Legion,
what?
we are many.
Yes, like, and I didn't even put it together, you know what I mean? Because I'm in the middle of my addiction, and then I had just people calling me, like so many men calling me, like, and they kept calling me like goddess, and and they were very persistent in calling me and wanting me to come to do these things, and yeah,
So
it
you saw
was
from the
great.
inside this network. The
Hmm.
person I had become involved with, people that were around this person kept saying, "Do you do realize he's law enforcement? You do realize this?" And I said, "No, no, I would know. I would know." And I would, if I would mention the police, they'd say, "He is the police." Like, what are you not understanding? And I just kept think I mean, I look back now and so naive, but I thought that I would have seen it. I did kind of get an indication. This was many years ago when everyone still had SIM cards and stuff. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. And they had this little trial for you could like, it was like that you could see what the person was doing on their phone. And it was like this 3-day trial, and they kept swapping out their SIM cards. And so they were using this phone, but swapping out. So they had a whole nother life other than what I saw. And so, from the inside, you're saying you witnessed these networks and they admittedly, you know,
Hmm.
told you. I mean, it's most of us only have the experience of not being helped, or even false arrests, setups. I mean, that was threatened to me so many times. It is only by the grace of God that whatever was planned, because he would say, "You are effing to go down. Like, I am going to set you up, and you are going, like, I have all my ducks in a row, and I will never know." There's no doubt in my mind it was planned. It never happened by the
Hmm.
grace of God. So, looking back, I'm like, how did I not know this? And how, even when I would flee and he'd say, "There's nowhere you can go that I won't know where you are." And when I would tell a therapist, they'd say, "Oh, abusers just do that. That's just what they say." And I'm like, "No, when somebody dark will speak to you and it will send a chill down you, like it would go right through me. Like, this person meant what they said, and they had a reason for saying it, and it held true for many, many years, and it may still be true. But that they, or he knows where I am, I just kind of accept it and go on. And so I would, one thing, and before I get to all your comments, is, can you tell, because a lot of people will say, "This is for life. You're in this for life." And my response is always like, "How big is your God?" That's how I feel about it, because that's who I started clinging to and reaching out to. And it wasn't right away. It was, a process, and cleaning up, places, behaviors. And again, this is not to indicate that it is the targeted individual's fault for what's happening, but I was ultra careful about not allowing any open doors for the enemy, whether that be people, places, behaviors, anything. And so, again, not victim blaming, but just saying I just didn't want any access from the enemy. And carnally, or that kind of thing. So I know I'm not the only person who has been able to have faith, modify their life in such a way that much, if not all of this, either goes away, changes, or becomes extremely random and kind of dormant. And can you talk about what you did or how that worked for you or in your case? Because I think it's safe to say you live as a free individual today, meaning in faith. And so if you could talk about that a little bit.
For sure. First of all, I had to literally cut ties with anyone from my past. Like anyone that was there, they were not there anymore. And I'm very particular about who gets private access to.
Correct. Yes.
Very particular. I don't do anything that I would get, into like trouble for, you know what I mean? I'm not doing drugs, I'm
Right.
not selling drugs, I'm not hanging around drug dealers, none of that stuff. I listen to my gut, like my instinct, I call it the Holy Spirit. And if the Holy Spirit gives me like if I feel like even your nervous system, if your nervous system, you know what I mean, you can't take a deep breath, or you have a rapid heartbeat, you know what I mean, like those are signs that you need to listen to,
Right.
that something is off. And so
I
like,
promise you all, we did not rehearse this. I say all these same things.
yeah.
We did not talk about this before. It's just,
Yes.
so yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And then, for me, like a huge part for me is my faith, because believe me, I still get triggered. Like I still get triggered. I still will think things. Sometimes I'll see things that are like kind of weird, and I'll be like, well, what's that? Like, is that, are they part of them, or is this, whatever. But because of my relationship with God, I literally will just take it back, and I will say, like, would God do that to me? Like, would he, like, whatever this thought I'm thinking, like, everybody's fake, nobody's real, everybody's out to get me, whatever it is, like,
Yeah, yeah.
they're watching me over here because they're trying to poison me, like, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like,
right.
whatever the thought is, I'm like, but would God do that to me? Would God let that happen? You know what I mean? I have to check. It says, like, like, bring every thought captive to the
Right.
mind of Christ. Like, think about it. Like, if we are Christ's own body, would he do that to his own body? You know what I mean? Like, really, like, do you really know the character of your God? If
Well,
you think,
he wouldn't. But
right.
whether the enemy would is something different.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And
Yes.
I saw in the comments, I saw Lorraine in the comments, and I want to address it while you're here, because there has been such, and I remember several years ago reading about this list. You're on this list, and it's a government list, and and I'm not sure if these people were intentionally putting out disinformation, or if, because I know personally targeted individuals who have checked that the government watch list for it's the anti-terrorism, and they were claiming that people were getting put on this list who weren't actually, that word that, seeking to do harm, but were put on this list. And so I recognize that that's a common narrative that people read and grab onto. And because they're not seeing maybe the spiritual aspect of it, and understanding that you, in my opinion, you have to think that all the way through. If the government suspects you of being that, I don't know if I can say that word on here, that T word,
Mm-hmm.
that is not how they behave. they they don't just harass, stalk, traumatize, gaslight, that is not how the government would operate. And so I think it can be looked at a few different ways, but maybe you could speak on that, because I know that there are targeted individuals that believe I have been put on a government list that I can never come off. And I know for a fact people who have checked that list and they are not on it, and that this is global. So which government would you have believe is keeping this list, and how how would for our government be doing this in Argentina and Brazil and Germany? And, so there's several ways that can kind of be dispelled. There are government programs. We know there have been government programs. That
Yes.
is a fact. MK Ultras, or
And
Zetsung,
those,
COINTELPRO, all of these tactics are, kind of tried and true tactics for destabilizing an individual. But the enemy has been studying us even longer. And so maybe you could speak on that in a different way than, I kind of say the same things every week, but
so I mean, as far as like our government, they would be more collecting intel and collecting data. So that
right,
would be just surveilling and watching.
right,
And maybe they might send someone to be friends with you, but they're not going to cause anything that's going to bring attention to them.
correct.
Now everything else that we're talking about as far as like MK Ultra and all those things, those are experimentation, like
Yeah,
military experiments. So
yeah.
that's something completely separate, and that's going to be in something that's going to be unclassified. That's going to be really hard for you to get your hands on any information. There's not going to be a public list about you on there, because any kind of experimentation is in a totally unclassified area. Maybe will come out 20 years later. When did they do MK Ultra? How many years ago? Like 30
Well,
something?
supposedly it ended, the documents were shredded in 1973. Now, COINTELPRO and Zerzetzung, and I don't want to stay on this too long, they were not experimentation. Like the word Zerzetzung means decomposition. And so this was under Stasi Germany, and they were targeting dissidents. And so they would set out to destabilize. COINTELPRO was the program that was occurring during the civil rights movement, and they were trying to their stated goal was to prevent the rise of the Messiah, not meaning Messiah like Jesus, but Messiah meaning help, or someone that would help that community. And so they did have certain tactics, but what I've tried to impress upon people is that what has been put out is that it's this anti-terrorism watch list that I forget how it's worded, like non-suspect people get put on, and that's why all this is happening. But I know from having been gang stalked and having been through this that governments don't invest in like sending 5 cars to just shine their lights at you, or to all of these wacky things that they do, break in your home, move your things, poison you. Again, it does draw attention to them, and although they want you to know they're there because it traumatizes you, they don't like leaving evidence. And governments require large paper trails and funding and all of these things. So I understand when somebody's at that point in their journey. I consumed everything when I was trying to figure out what was going on. And so I would read about MK Ultra and be like, oh, that's it. Or I would read about, there was an online type, and I don't even know if they still exist, that put out a lot of information, and that was their rationale. And they took it all the way to court. They spent millions of dollars taking it to court. And there was discovery, of course, and all of that. So I understand why people think that, but I would just hope that maybe I always am telling people to zoom out and maybe just look from a more bird's eye view, because these are generally people who believe that the government is at the top of the power chain. And what we recognize is, or what I recognize is, that they are subject to the same influences and forces. And like you said about the files that have just come out, there are people and organizations and networks that sit on top of the government. So it's generally people who think that they are the most powerful people, because I thought, who could be doing this? Is it the government? Is it organized crime? Like, who was this guy associated with? So I get it. I'm not trying to, chastise anyone for that belief, but just maybe shed some light on why it doesn't exactly hold up. Besides the fact that I know people, including myself, that have checked that list, but kind of some of the things you pointed out also.
So, I mean, as of where we are right now, nobody has to drive by your house. All they have to do is mess with your algorithm. Right? All they
Yeah.
have to do is put specific things in your algorithm, and it's psychological warfare.
Yes.
Nobody's got to
Yes.
blink their lights at you anymore. Like, they've made it real easy,
Yeah,
right?
they just kind of put you in this mental echo chamber,
Hmm.
that reinforces that. So that's a very good point, that even social media, what you are fed, can
Hmm.
very much influence that. And I think I'm always telling people, you don't know deception unless you know the truth. And that is how I ground myself, is with the word, or with prayer, or with my relationship with God, because I'm just as susceptible to deception as anybody else. And so, if it weren't for discernment and God, just left to my own two eyes and ears, I would be just as susceptible to and wanting an answer so badly for why
Yes.
is this happening? What's going on? It makes total sense why people, grab onto that. If you go through this long enough, it becomes evident. Like, I had gotten rid of my phone, gotten rid of my emails, didn't have a car. It had been set on fire, and
Hmm.
had fled and was on a but like, it didn't matter. Like, if I had no technology, no trace, no social media, no nothing, and things start to become evident. And maybe
Hmm.
God just opens our eyes. I don't know, but
And I want to address at Cap my target story too. I'm not saying that your the people who are pursuing you are not driving by. I was specifically talking about government officials, our
right,
United States government.
right.
I can tell you that I know someone personally who used to work for a billionaire in like the Keys in Florida. And this guy had a whole ton of real estate, and he had a whole bunch of friends who were all, very wealthy and didn't, like, work regular jobs, and there was even some military people in his little clique. And they literally would put cameras in people's rental property and mess with them just for fun. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah. And
we're not
because
saying it's not happening. I'm just saying that as
agreed,
far as the US government is concerned, I
right.
don't believe that I think that they have advanced far beyond.
Of yes, and yes, people do drive by, do the headlight thing, sensitize you to a color, all of these things, all of the street theater, all of that kind of thing. But I think what we're alluding to, or indicating, is that if you are a suspected person on such a list, they would be perhaps surveilling you, to see what you're up to. I think it's pretty widely known that most everyone's surveilled at this point to varying degrees, but you know, certainly surveillance could be a part of that. But some of these tactics, some of the family mobbing, the group, and it doesn't explain family betrayal very well, because I know that there are people that I love very much that have betrayed me, and I don't believe it was for money. I believe it very much had to be, the logistics don't even work. When you talk about how many targeted individuals there are, and scripture tells us that, when Satan acts, he acts out of his own nature, and that these people cannot rest unless they do evil. They literally, that's what feeds them. Like you're saying, doing this just to mess with people. Like, they don't even need that kind of incentive. And so there just are a lot of things that can't be explained,
Hmm.
when you think about the logistics of it being solely the government. Not that they're not complicit, not that law enforcement's not involved, not that there can't be doctors involved in hospitals. They most definitely are. They're everywhere. They're Uber drivers. They're in restaurants. They're in grocery stores. They're everywhere. It's just that it appears to be not by uh, what do I want to say, by career choice, but more divided along the human heart between good and evil. And of course, there are evil people and people being used by the enemy everywhere. You know.
Hmm.
So did you say you did many of the things I did, which is being very selective about who has access to you personally, into your home, into your, anything. There are people that I still love that don't know where I live because I just am not willing to take that chance, and being very careful about that. What are some of the other things you found helpful other than, I know, your faith also? I mean, for me, I got to where, like, the prison I was in was worse than anything they could do to me. And so even though I was still afraid, I would go out anyway. And so things like that. So my faith was, extremely helpful in that way. So what else was helpful for you?
Um, really, like, honestly, finding something that I was passionate about. So I have a career that I am very passionate about, and focusing my energy on that, also focusing my energy on helping others. Like, I call it planting good seeds. So focusing on less of me, more of what I can do to help people will help
Right.
kind of break that cycle, the thought cycle, and where I'm putting my attention in the cycle.
And again, instead of on them, but like, how can I move forward? How can I survive this? How can I best insulate myself from this? How can, and taking your, because that's what they want, is our attention,
Mhm.
and us to zoom in on that and get caught up in all that minutia and every detail and spin our wheels in that. They hope forever, to have us forever captivated by that.
Mhm.
I had another question, and that was, it was about the witchcraft, because I know it's something that I can't very well speak to my audience about. I don't know a lot about it. And so what would be something that people could watch for that would
Mm.
indicate to them this might be at play here, other than just random things, but some identifiable things that they could say, yep, that's something that a witchcraft practitioner would do.
So watch for people who want to give you gifts. They want to give you gifts. They want to anything, like they want to just give you something, a book or a pen, or for the ladies, some jewelry. Some A man wants to give you some jewelry, you know what I mean? Gifts. Definitely watch what you're bringing into your house.
And can you speak on why that is?
Because demons can attach themselves to objects.
Okay,
So when you bring it into your house, you've also brought its friends.
great.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Yes. Something I do now, this is, if you are a believer in Jesus, I watch for monitoring spirits. And how do I find out if I have like monitoring spirits? Like, if somebody, say, from, this area of people that I'm not too trusting of, knows something that I said specifically in my house when nobody else was there, right? I would know that I have a monitoring spirit, which is what that is it's a witch who is astral projecting into your house and literally watching you. Our own government does it, okay?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what
yeah.
you can do when you see, you ask the Lord to give you eyes to see, and I can always tell because it'll be something like, if there were blinds, you know what I mean, or curtains, I would notice that they were kind of like moving, like I can almost see them like in the spirit. And you literally will just say, because the Lord says in the Bible that he does not suffer a witch to live, this person is accessing my house illegally. And you can literally cut the silver cord, and the silver cord is what connects like their soul that they're astral projecting to their body. That
So
it
if
is
you cut that, can they get like lost in
They
the?
will die.
Oh,
They will die. I will usually give them a warning. But you don't have to. But I will usually give them a warning, and I will say, "Okay, do you want me to tell the Lord to cut your silver cord since you're going to sit here and watch me?" You
So
know that the
this
Lord
is
doesn't
like what
suffer a
can
witch to live.
so I've heard of astral projection, remote viewing. I know, again, like you just pointed out, the government, even I grew up in the GATE program in the 70s. And so I even have some insight into that and what they were trying to extrapolate from us and teach us to do. But so again, like you've pointed out, our government has even done that. So they wouldn't be investing budgets in doing this if it weren't possible. So for people who are more analytical or, want receipts, there are receipts for this, and black, even published budgets for this type of thing. So but the silver cord I had not heard of. I did know that there was some, you would think if they go off into the spiritual realm and can't come back to their body, that, yeah, that would, I didn't realize it meant
Yeah,
that, but yeah.
yeah. So I will give them a warning just because I want them to come to repentance,
Yeah.
because of, my heart for the Lord, and the Lord doesn't want anyone to perish. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell them, like, hey, like, keep playing with me. Like, and you gotta have authority when you talk to these like demons in your house. You know what I mean? You gotta let them
Yeah.
know, like, this is my house. I don't know who you think you're coming in on.
Right.
You gotta have authority and know who you are in Christ, and know where your ground is, and know that he who is greater in you is greater than he who is in them. I don't care what kind of magic tricks they do or how much floating they can do. It doesn't matter. You are still greater, and you still have authority over them. So that's
Yeah, I was going to say, and he gave us authority to trample the heads of serpents and snakes. He gave us the authority over demons and things like that. So it's claiming that, in confidence and boldness in Christ is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and Katie's talking about my mother is these things, and Katie, you can do something to break the generational house of your mother off of your bloodline. You can also do that. There's prayers for that. You should look it up. And so yeah, just like watching for gifts. I don't ever let anybody like take my phone. Like, I don't just like let people like use my phone. You know what I mean? And yeah, watching where I focus my attention on is huge. I try to focus my attention on how can I serve, how can I make the world better, because that is going to take my mind away from, oh my goodness, this is what they're doing to me, right? Because like, we're put here for a reason. Our eyes have been open for a reason. There's a whole world out there who's sleeping and has no idea what's going on.
Right.
Right.
And it definitely feels like the scripture that God will send a strong delusion, that they will believe the lie, and that they didn't love truth, and he does turn them over to their own desires. It's not that he's being partial and just cutting people off. I wanted to see Battle for Your Brain is talking about the technology, which can be a whole nother area. But there was, if you could talk, you mentioned the monitoring spirits, you mentioned gifts. What are some other things that people can watch for? Because this is truly an area that I am not well versed in. Almost intentionally. Like, and you know how you said about ex witches, I have the same hesitation when I see somebody say ex CIA is when I see somebody say ex witch, which is why I trusted you to come on. I knew that you had familiarity with it without having practiced in, because I always wonder, no judgment. It's just,
For sure. Yeah.
I'm just careful, So
Yeah.
what are some other things that you have noticed or that you've observed that would be a red flag?
So hearing, like, if you hear say you have allowed like a certain person into your life, and then you all of a sudden are like hearing conversation that they're having, and say, like, for me it's always weird. I always hear it when the vent comes on. Like, I can hear, you know what I mean, if somebody is like, and I feel like that's God like letting us hear these
Yeah.
conversations. to know, like, hey, this person is either talking about you or, has bad intentions towards you. As far as technology, I remember being getting, like, it felt like I was getting burned by, like, almost like a cigarette or something. I don't know, like, not like a cigarette though. It was different.
A lot of people talk about burning on their skin
Yeah. Hmm.
and assume that it is directed energy. And it's so tough to sort out sometimes. Directed energy, your nervous system, and witchcraft. And because our nervous system, as you pointed out earlier, also can have an effect on our body. The body keeps the score. I'm always recommending that book for people to recognize that trauma has a real physical effect. So
Oh.
you're saying that burning can even be witchcraft.
Yes, it can be. Well, the technological part of it. That's the only technological part that I know of it, besides them, like, watching me through my phone. But something really awesome that I've been learning about is I've been learning about how to regulate our nervous system. And what I've been learning, I took this 6-hour class, and it was talking about how when our nervous system is dysregulated, which means that we're, like, in fight or flight, right? Which just
Right.
as being, like, targeted, like, who's not, right? Um,
Right.
we make decisions using the back part of our brain, which is
I
the
promise we
survival
didn't rehearse
mode.
this, guys. I'm always telling them this.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
and then the when you make decisions, when your nervous system is regulated, when your body is not in survival mode, it comes from the frontal cortex, I believe, and
prefrontal cortex. Yeah,
prefrontal cortex.
I'm in neuropsychology. So yeah,
Okay.
so in
Yes.
terms of when we go into fight or flight, it's our survival instincts.
Mhm.
They've added so many now. It's fight or flight or freeze or fawn or
Right.
but it's that base part of your brain. And I'm
Yes.
always telling people, so your rational part, the part that makes decisions, the prefrontal cortex primarily, kind of takes a back seat, and your limbic system and your nervous system take over because it just wants to survive. It's the same instinct as your body doesn't know the difference if it's being chased by a bear or you've just been triggered, with your nervous system. It's just trying to survive. And so they bank on those impulsive decisions. So they get you into that state on purpose so that
Mhm.
you are more impulsive, you're more emotional, you'll react, and then they can catch you. Just like they said, they tried to catch Christ in what he would say. I always think about that. They are just waiting for you to lash out, act out in anger, get emotional. For me, it was crying, and that would be gaslit. Oh, she's crying again. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're so correct. And it's so hard for people to figure out sometimes, though. And even for myself, is this my nervous system? Is this directed energy? Is this witchcraft? And sometimes we don't have the answer,
Mhm.
concretely. We just have to, like you said, regulate ourselves. And I
Absolutely.
utilize walking, journaling, praying, scripture, all those kind of things. Like it's really not hokey because
Mhm.
it just settles everything down.
Well, they
I
actually
do.
walked us through this technique, and they said it only takes your body 17 seconds to regulate if you allow it. And so they had us do breathing. They started us with breathing, and they would tell
Like
us to
square breathing.
breathe. They told us as long as we exhale longer than we inhale, then it signals to our body that we're safe. So that was like something so simple, like, oh, okay. So I can inhale however many seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds, but then I exhale 6, 7, 8 seconds. It doesn't matter as long as it's longer when it's coming out.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
And that will signal to your body that you're safe. And then they had us, like, say, like, okay, well, feel your feet on the ground, feel the chair you're sitting in. Do you feel how secure you are? Like, notice that. And then they told us, like, okay, now
grounding.
yeah, they said open your eyes and name three objects you see on the wall or three objects in the room. And it was
Yeah,
instantly breaks me out of my trigger.
yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah, EMDR is really good for that too. It utilizes those
Mm.
same things like grounding and being present, like naming. You can like do name one thing you hear, one thing you see, one thing you feel, one thing you smell, one thing you, and immediately you're kind of back in your surroundings. I'm glad you brought that up. Um,
It's magical.
yeah,
It's like it almost,
there-
when the first time I did it, it almost scared me when I heard my voice say, like, naming the objects on the wall, like, because you hear your internal voice all day long, right? You're thinking and you're panicking, you're talking and you're stressed and your brain's going. But then when I said it out loud and I was just like breathing, and I looked and I was like, clock, and I was like, oh, like, I was like saying, you know what I mean? Like, heard my voice. I was like, oh, wait, like, it broke me from being triggered and from being in fight or flight, and it was so amazing. And I think if we can implement this into our day, that this will just really transform our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I know for me, I start my day, before I turn on my phone, before I turn on any devices, before I do anything, I have this reading, praying, journaling little routine. I go for a walk, so that you start off at ground zero and not like you with your feet hitting the ground and already going. I do want to ask on behalf of myself and everybody, like, so why would it not be enough to just rebuke witchcraft in Christ's name? Because that's the approach that I take on everything, whether it's technology, whether it's witchcraft, is that I just, you know, claim the power of God and of Jesus and rebuke it because I know that he's bigger than all of it. And so what are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, that's absolutely like step one, but that's for people who understand their authority and identity. Like, if people can't just be like, oh, I rebuke that. Like, do you even know what rebuke means? Like, how do you even know what you
Gotcha.
mean to, like, do you know what kind of
Whose
authority you have
authority?
to shut
Yeah.
that down? Like, do you understand? So, like, I think that people have to really understand like what it means to have authority and for their identity, and under like having a true understanding of their covenant relationship with Jesus. And that's a huge thing that I'm learning. I've been in Bible college since September, so I'm about to finish up my first year, and understanding the covenant that we have in Jesus is has been such a game changer for me, understanding what that means to be in covenant. And it's not like a lot of people think covenant like that means like contract, or like something like a marriage, like close. But like, if you understand in the ancient times, like uh the the people back then, what a covenant actually was much deeper than anything we could ever understand here. There's so much more to it, and it's so beautiful when you understand that. It gives us such a deep, firm foundation in our, like, being secure with God, and knowing like he's not just gonna like throw us off throw us off because he gets sick of us one day, because he
Yeah.
literally can't,
Yeah.
because he has to hold to his covenant. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
understanding
He's
these
not a
things.
breaker of promises. I was discussing that with
Yes.
somebody today, and I didn't realize that one of the translations for testament is covenant, that it is the old covenant and the new covenant. And that was something, because I'm always looking up the Greek root, the Hebrew root, the Latin root, all these, and I didn't realize that. But when I learned that, it made perfect sense, like the old covenant and the new covenant. So I think you're right. Maybe for somebody who doesn't understand or have that, what they are claiming, like
Mhm.
you have to have that to stand on, I guess, before you could stand on it and claim it. So I would, because my kind of resistance would be like I wouldn't want to um do something in that same vein of like witchcraft. You know what I'm saying? And so I would want to fight on the, or not fight, you know what I'm saying, by using Jesus. And if would that be sufficient, you
Mhm.
know? for witchcraft.
Oh, I mean that's the only thing that I know that can overcome it. I mean, I don't know anything else that overcomes witchcraft um besides Jesus, and and like the word, but also like walking it out in faith. Like like you can say something, but do you really believe it?
Right.
Do you really believe it? I mean, I
It,
can
it and in that case, it won't be effective. You know
right.
what I'm
It's
saying?
like
It's
when I was
not just the
Catholic.
word. It's not like a magic
Mhm.
phrase, or it's
Yes.
not the words. It's what's in you've been, like you said, the covenant, what you've been given through Christ. But if you don't have that connection, oh, to begin with, then it's going to be more difficult to do that or to have power in that, I
Yes.
want to see if you guys have any questions for her, because for Jamie, because this is our chance, because I am not a witchcraft person, and I remember when I saw you a couple of years ago, you were talking, you had a couple of people on your show. While we're waiting for anybody with questions, tell people where they can find you. I know, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm so happy for you about Bible college. Are you still working in the addiction space? Is that still something? I know you were really passionate about that, and I just am and so proud of your sobriety and everything you've done, and setting your focus on helping others and being of service. So where can they find you, if that's something that they want help with, or want more material on, or anything like that?
My YouTube is Jamie Tall, and I'm also on Jamie Tall TikTok, Facebook, but most of my things regarding this topic are going to be on my YouTube. And yeah, anytime anyone has a question or anything, my email is jamietallcoaching@gmail.com. I am a certified peer specialist for addictive disease, certified with the Georgia Council for Recovery. I do a lot of work in human trafficking and addiction. And yeah, now I'm adding in, the word, having the word and being able to help people with the word, because before I just had my personal experience, and I would try to explain it to women, like, no, like, this is how God loves you, this is how God looks at you. And now being more versed in understanding in the translations of the Bible, and understanding what it really says, and how much Jesus really came for women and helped women, and how much he looked for them and came after them. So now I have, the word to put back with my experience, like, yes, this is my experience and I have proof. Because
Yeah,
this is what
yeah.
the word says.
So Michelle is and I won't read that out loud, but I'm sure you can see it on the screen, just because I don't want to call her out. And since we both have experience in that area, um, I did a members video. And so, Michelle, I strongly encourage you to watch it, about my experience, even in, because this won't surprise you, Jamie, but in, just as trafficking is big business, so is anti-trafficking. I've been on task forces, and there are these homes that I thought I was I called this hotline. I thought I was going to get help. And so I just want to say, you really want to have discernment going into this, and being, if you're going to reach out for help. I just met with somebody last week going through this, be asking all these questions, like, am I going to be able to contact my family? What happens at the end of my time here at this place? Because I saw some pretty horrific things and had to escape. Even what was supposed to be anti-trafficking was pretty scary in the middle of the desert. And I don't know if I would have made it out had I not jumped out of a car to get away. But so I please, Michelle, if you want to even comment under like one of the member videos so that it's not out there for everybody. But just make sure that you're asking the right questions if you do seek help for that, because so oftentimes it's a mirage, just like we've learned with gang stalking, and how I grew up with officer friendly, that I trusted blindly every officer. I trusted everybody that had letters behind their name, whether it was PhD, MD, whatever it was, and having to have discernment. And so anybody in that position, please just use discernment. And I'm available to meet with people, and I can definitely help in that area. I do have some good resources, and can I sign some NDAs for the places I worked, but I can at least steer you in the right direction, in terms of a way for that. Would you have anything to offer? Michelle has been a member for a long time, and so she's saying that she mentioned, yeah, that okay. So Michelle is saying she mentioned she was being gang stalked and they wouldn't accept her, and you can maybe look at that as God's protection, because I'm
Right.
telling you, I've seen the inside
Yeah.
of 7 of these homes, not 1, not 2, not 3, 7, all over the country. And I do tell people, like, the only thing that will shut down someone's ears or listening faster than demons is gang stalking, gang
Mhm.
stalking or things like that. So I'm always telling people, just be specific, be selective, and be very steady when you're talking to people. I don't generally use those words unless it's on this channel, because I know it's a community that understands, but the average person, I wouldn't tell my doctor. I wouldn't, I just don't use that verbiage for that reason. But if you say, I have been exploited, I'm in fear from whatever the situation is, instead of using those words, because if they know about it, oftentimes they won't admit that they know about it, or they're not trained and don't know about it. And the term itself is kind of like conspiracy theorist. It's been put out there and sensationalized, and so it just will close down a lot of people's ears. So if it's physical symptoms, I stick with those. It's a migraine, it's heart palpitations, it's, without going into the narrative of gang stalking. And so I would look at that, though. If for some reason that door closed for you, I thank God for every closed door as much as the open ones, because it's oftentimes protection. So is there anything else that you think that this community could benefit from? Like, if you could leave them with some hope, because I can't be the only person saying that this is survivable and you can live free. And so I wouldn't trade it for anything now, Jamie, because I may have stayed forever asleep with my eyes closed. I may have gone down even more dangerous paths. And thank God his hand was on me when I did have closed eyes. So what could you offer? You said about being selective about people you allow in. And I saw you yawning too. I know you've been moving all day. I really appreciate this, Jamie. Thank you. So yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
I told you we could reschedule.
No, I know, I
You're
know.
such
No, I
a
didn't want
trooper.
to. I didn't want to.
But something that you, in anything else you can think of that might be helpful um for this community,
Yeah, I
because
would
they're
say.
always looking for hope that they're not alone, and that they're seen, and this isn't hopeless.
Mhm.
It's, you have to modify things, but it's not hopeless.
I would say definitely people in your inner circle who will validate your feelings is has just been super helpful to me. Like, even people who don't understand it, but will still say like, well, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you made it through that, and I'm so glad that you're safe now. You know,
Yeah.
so finding people who are in your having people in your circle that you can be honest with, and that you can say like, and I would say even communicating with those people like, hey, I'm feeling really triggered. I'm going to go into isolation for a couple hours. If you don't hear
Yeah.
from me, check on me. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
and would you say that because a lot of people are left alone, isolated, they've been
mhm,
betrayed. I did the same thing you did. I literally cut everybody off when I fled the first time. I had children, grown children, and only one of them knew where I lived at that time out of the four ones that were living. I was that scared, but I forget where I was going with that, but you had so people who are completely isolated, who have
mhm,
nobody, who have either cut off their circle or have been betrayed by the people closest to them. um I think a lot of us have found that even the churches can be infiltrated. Not all churches, not every church. That's not what I'm saying. So other than discernment, what would be a good way for people, do you find, to
I
find
would
that kind of support?
I would say, we know that it takes at least 6 months for somebody's mask to fall off, right? We know that, like, this is kind of our like general dating rules, right? When we're dating someone,
Right. Yeah.
it takes
Yeah.
like, but that's in friendship too, right? So like,
Yeah.
we want to like be around someone, and we kind of want to observe people for a little while. I mean,
Yes.
that's what I do. Like, if I'm gonna date someone, I'm gonna observe them for like a year before I will
Yeah.
commit to dating them, because it's just happened too many times, and I'm going to watch, and I'm going to watch for consistencies. I'm going to watch for inconsistencies. I'm going to watch for, like, do they have family? Do they talk about their family? How are they speaking about their family? You know what I mean? Like, different, just really being observant, and
How
learning.
they treat other people, how
Yes.
they, even when they don't think anybody's looking.
Yes.
I've had to learn to be patient. I've even been burnt, on here, thinking somebody is oriented toward God. So I've learned to be patient. It's not my nature. I want to just like
Mhm.
immediately, people want to have companionship or
Yeah.
friends or whatever, support, just camaraderie, a community. And so I know that it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And you're a lot younger than I am. So I thought maybe you'd have some safe. I feel like no place is inherently safe anymore. Like just because it's a church or just because it's a I don't know, rec center, or just, like
Even a
inherently.
gang stop and stalking community support.
Right,
Yeah, like
right.
even that,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the media, the people complain like that. There's no, like, nobody wants to get together because people become very skittish, understandably, with our information, and it only takes one perpetrator to infiltrate that group
Hmm.
to, for the whole thing to be compromised. And I think it's hard for people to go out on a limb. I think it might even be preferable to find like non-TI friends,
Yeah.
because I don't speak about it, like face, like the people around me in my proximity. I don't speak about this at all. Um so I think it's
Absolutely. And I would say, like, I mean, you know, we don't want this to be our whole identity, right?
right.
So if you like, maybe you want to do, what's that thing with the boat when you do the two little things? What is that
Paddle
thing?
boat?
Yes, paddle boat. Yeah, find like
Oh, I don't
a
I
paddle
was
boat,
thinking about pickleball,
kayaking,
but maybe it's my age.
pickleball, like something
Yeah.
else. Like, do you like
Like, I've kind of
taekwondo?
been putting I just family out, so you all know, whoever is watching or watching on replay, I'm doing test runs for us and putting my toe in the water because I haven't been in this area that long. So I came here for a job, and I don't work there any longer, but so I didn't know anybody outside of this little survivor home. So I'm kind of running a trial run for everybody, and I'll let everybody know the results. But I didn't see any questions, and I feel like I've kept you after you've moved all day for so long. I'm looking back through there. I see Iman's in the house, and Michelle, and a lot of people. They expect me on Sunday, and so but they'll see this on replay. And I want to thank you again, Jamie, for taking the time to do this. I get invited on podcasts, and people want to come on and tell their story, but I knew that I could trust you. And I've been watching, I like the patience thing we talked about. I had a strong sense for who you were and your relationship with Christ. And I just knew I would be blessed by having you on here. And I'm sure everyone else will be too. And so thank you so much for doing this. And
You.
yeah, and enjoy, get settled in. And I will be in that area soon. Maybe I'll have to.
Yeah. Yeah, that
So
would be great. I know I have so many boxes. I didn't realize how many like facial products that I have. Apparently I do a lot of things. I'm like, oh, I have like exfoliants and I have eye masks and I have like
wow,
so much.
fancy.
I have all this like bath face stuff, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my goodness.
It looks like it's gonna be nice in there. It looks big. I'm
It
used to seeing you with your your screen in the back.
mm-hmm.
And so yeah, thanks again. And I'm looking again for anybody with questions. And but I don't see anything. But I just love you, Jamie, and thank you so much.
Love
I'll
you
stay
too.
on a little bit longer in case you guys have questions, but um it was great to see you.
Yes. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me on. And you
Okay.
guys just keep looking up. It says we focus on the unseen, not on the seen, and put our faith in God. Who has the final say. He is your protector, he is your defender, and he loves you more than you could ever even imagine. So thank you
Thank
so
you, Jamie.
much.
And thank you for leaving us with that hope.
Okay,
Have a good night.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So, guys, I'll answer a few of your questions. Walk away is saying that my life is a Truman Show, and if you all, and Saul is in the house, and your live chat's not working. Let's see. She looking for the truth did not use a Bible verse for watchers. I can tell you that you can Google search the watchers, so to speak, and the sin of the watchers is mainly talked about in the book of Enoch. When we speak about monitoring spirits, you can look back like at the story of Job, where we know that Satan has been watching Job and how he prowls around the earth. And so it's more inferences. The sin of the watchers is talked about there are 3 books of Enoch, but in the first book of Enoch, it is referenced. There is something in the Bible called the cloud of witnesses. But I don't think that those are referenced as bad guys, or so to speak, but as it just talks about the cloud of witnesses. And so she didn't mention a Bible verse. She was talking about monitoring spirits in a more general sense. And also, I keep forgetting my camera's over here. I'm sorry, guys. But where we get the word watchers, there's an excellent book also called The Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser. And it's all scriptural based, and it starts from Genesis, and he goes really in depth. I have it. It's right here. It's really, really good. And he incorporates he says recovering the supernatural worldview of the Bible, but it's very biblically based. And Robin is asking who is the real author of the book of Enoch, and I'm not sure. It's what's called pseudo pseudo-canonical, which means it's called the Book of Enoch, but is not written by Enoch. And so I couldn't tell you the author. It was part of what was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I've only read pieces of it. And so I don't know. But Derek is saying monitoring spirits, lots in the New Testament. They're not called that, though, is the thing. They're not called monitoring spirits. So I was trying to look for something that somebody could search for, and if you just search for monitoring spirits, that's not what it'll be called, even in the New Testament. So Grace Lee Knott is saying that I just downloaded the Book of Enoch. I look forward, Lord willing, to read that. I've heard about it. Yeah, same. Breathe Top. I love Dr. Heiser, and I am so sad. I had been trying, you all, to get him on this podcast, and somebody has, in not realizing he had passed away from cancer in 2023. And so his old email address, somebody is obviously, they've either hacked it or they're managing it. I'm not sure. But I was so desperate to get Dr. Michael Heiser on here. But this book, The Unseen Realm, and he has one called, I think, Demons and Angels. This is the only one I have, but he also does reference. Look how this is how thick the reading is, y'all. It's not light reading. It is very well sourced. And Dr. Heiser said that his goal was to keep people's the worldview that the Jewish people would have had during the time that scripture was written. And so they did have access to the Book of Enoch and extra canonical writings, writings that aren't inside biblical canon. And so he does pull in these references, and he'll tell you where it's, but what I like about it is that it doesn't stray far from scripture. In fact, even the things that he references from the Dead Sea Scrolls are things that were talked about in scripture. So like Paul at one time mentions, I don't know if it's the Book of Enoch by name, but something from the Book of Enoch. And so there are different places in scripture where it's referenced, but it just doesn't go into it too deeply. And then when we recovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, it predated what we had by 1,000 years. And so he does reference those, but he is quick to point out what is what. And I just love that. So Battle for Your Brain is saying, wake up. Okay. The reality for that is that, so with the and I'm not going to read your whole comment out loud, but I see it, Battle for Your Brain. And there have been organizations for about the last 10 years now that have done a great deal of testing and scanning. And the reality is that other than people with like Neuralink and things like that, they don't need microchips any longer. But most every targeted individual goes through a phase where they believe they are microchipped. And because it's like, how are they seeing me? How are they following me? How are they, I can't figure this out. And I remember thinking, like, is it something I'm wearing? I threw away. I had this bracelet is solid metal, and I bought one for all of my children, and I've never taken it off for, I want to say, like 15 years. So I had one and I took everything off thinking, is it something on me like that could be? And the reality is, with fMRIs and with scanning, they have rarely, it's almost never found microchips at this point. But they want you to think that for two reasons. And one of them is so that no one will believe you. When you say, I have microchip, I'm implanted with a microchip, it's like literally like those movies they used to have years and years ago about people in institutions saying, I'm being tracked by the government and I have a microchip. And it was kind of like this cliche thing. And so it gives the impression, because they know, but you don't realize your Wi-Fi can tell where you are in your house. Like, there are cameras everywhere out in society now. Sound can even be used to extract your exact location. They don't need chips, and they leave evidence, and they can be removed. So for all of those reasons, it's very rarely, if ever, the case any longer. Yeah, and that's what Katie Cat is saying. And what I was just saying, it has to do with sound. There are so many different ways that they are able to do this. And even what we know, we're like 20, 30 years behind what they have the capability to do. So even the things I'm familiar with are astounding. If you look up infrasound, if you look up Wi-Fi, I mean, how do you think Alexa, like for instance, Alexa, or what's the other one? I forget the other company. How do you think it knows when you walk in the room? It knows. They can even pull that data now for court cases, like from your watch. Like, they can tell if somebody's laying next to you. They don't need microchips anymore. And so it's extremely rare. And again, this organization, and I've looked for you guys, it was freedom from covert harassment something, and it was FF something something. And back in the day, they did a lot of scanning. There's Nanotech also, and that's something we haven't even talked about. And Nanotech is so small, and it makes everybody. I have a new book called Human Energy Fields. I mean, there are just so many other ways that is so outdated, leaves evidence, and can be removed, that I can 99.999% of the time is not the case. No, nanotech is not microchips. Nanotech is so small that you cannot see it. Nanotech is technology that is so small that it literally, you would need to see it with a microscope. It can be in metals, it can be in water, it can be in food, it can be in the air. You can breathe it. That's how small nanotech is. So that's different than a microchip. Iman is saying we are not putting off a frequency that can be isolated. And I won't read the rest of that, because the reason, Iman, is because some people, I don't want to gaslight somebody else's experience, maybe just because I haven't had it. But here's what I understand about that, and it is it's kind of what you're saying, Iman. And I did a video on V2K and RNM where I talked about this. And we do emit a frequency. Our brain emits a frequency, but it's extremely, the bandwidth isn't, I'm trying to put this simply, the bandwidth isn't very wide. And so it's hard to read it from a distance. And so that is why they would need to merge us with technology. It is why they would want or need to merge you with technology, to have like a one-on-one 100% accuracy. Now, in psychology, they have done studies where they will, for instance, be doing a brain scan and show someone a picture of somebody they love, and they'll watch what their brainwaves do. And then they will show them a picture of something unpleasant, and they watch what their brainwaves do. And if they do it enough times, they can tell by your brainwaves what you are thinking about. At first, they can tell what parts of your brain light up. And if they show you a cat enough times, say they showed you a cat 5,000 times and watch what your brain did. Eventually, when they saw that exact activity, they could reverse engineer that and say, oh, she thought about or she saw a cat. So I hope you're following me on this. But they've done studies like that, but it is very kind of vague. And so what it requires is the interface of technology like AI with your brain waves and your brain patterns. And so I don't doubt that could be possible. The problem for them or anyone is being able, if they could hook you up to a machine and read your brainwaves 24/7 and run them through tech AI, eventually they would be able to do that. But it's that we don't emit a strong frequency. And nanotech, one of the theories is that that is an amplifier for the energy that we emit. That would it would basically, it's just a theory, I'm not saying it's true or untrue, but that it would amplify that signal that we're giving off so that it could be read. And so yeah. And yeah, and that's what I was saying too. Let's see, Blaze is saying yeah, and there oh, thank you, Davis, I'll just say Davis. Thank you, Davis, very much. And you said all the gang stalking and witchcraft is designed to keep you from fulfilling God's purpose in your life. So you can be judged and not have done even one thing he wanted you to do. And thank you, Davis. It is definitely a preemptive strike on your purpose. It is definitely the enemy trying to keep you from your purpose. There's no doubt about it. Wanting you focused on microchips and surveillance and headlights and all of these things. And so it is definitely, if he can't break us, he will try to make us like one of them, meaning staying in vengeance and staying just, it's one thing to feel those emotions and to want justice. That's very normal. But when you stay stuck, I get these comments all the time, guys, where the people will literally spend the rest of their life in exacting vengeance on people for this. And in that case, if I were to step back, I wouldn't know the difference between a perpetrator and them. Because if you're just each wishing for each other's destruction, and it's a trap, it's an enemy trap, and it's a normal emotion to be indignant about this, and everybody goes through that. But when you stay that way, it's like this person was saying, I need to take matters in my own hands, I'm gonna just basically harm them all. And the problem with that too is, you know how it gets when this is going on and your spidey senses are up, so to speak, or you've the Holy Spirit has told you something's off. It has been the case before where you might go off on the wrong person. They hope you'll do that. They hope you will do that. If they have sensitized you, say to a color or a gesture, and you go to the grocery store and somebody inadvertently makes that gesture or wears that color, and you assume that they are one of them, and you just go off like, I know you're one of them. I've seen videos like this where people are like, get away from me, I know who you are, blah, blah. And they look, the targeted individual is the one that looks unstable, because to the untrained eye, it looks like they're just going off on this person who happens to be wearing a shirt in the refrigerator section. Now, this person might be right. They might have been a perpetrator and they sense that, or they could be wrong and they're banking on that. So it's very true that the enemy wants you just zoomed in on every little detail, on everything. You know, I still to this day, and I think Jamie had mentioned this, where she will get triggered. I have to purposely like not react. So they used to come in my house and move things and take things. And so every now and then something will go missing or something will be out of place. And I purposely assume that it is a coincidence. I have lost it. I have lost, or, you know, lost track of whatever the item is for my own sanity. Like, it has to be so extreme, because you can get yourself so worked up into a frenzy and playing whack-a-mole with your devices and your home. I mean, I'm not saying be reckless. There are measures you can take to protect your home. It's just that when I spent every waking moment of every day focused on what they are doing, if they are doing it, when it was going to happen next, is my car safe? It is miserable. It's miserable. And I honestly would rather just go about focusing on my life, focusing on how I can be most healthy, most stable, and assume that I kind of go out with blinders on, and I think I just triggered my camera to follow me. Kingdom work is, let's see, um, trust in the Lord. Vengeance is all God's, although bitterness and ruminating happens. Effort each day. Yeah, that's honest, Graceline, not for sure. So I'm gonna see if anybody else. Let's see, FCVD. Let's see, what can I call you? Well, Right Life is saying, if you think you are a TI, you are empowering your reality perception narrative to others to control you by defining your identity, values, and perceptions. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I last Sunday did a video on kind of trying to shift that posture from being, identifying as a targeted individual and identifying as I am someone with a purpose. And kind of claiming the 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 very things that the enemy is trying to stop, the very things that the enemy is trying to keep you distracted from, and staying focused on those, because hijacking your perception is very important. It was touched on with Jamie too, with social media and things. If you can capture someone's perception into, you can easily kind of shepherd their behavior. So you get them believing that everyone is saying this, or everyone is thinking this, or that this is the truth, and you put them kind of in this, a person in this echo chamber. You can very much navigate their behavior. So I think there's something to what you're saying for sure. Because when you can control someone's perception and their identity, you can oftentimes control their behavior. And so, Michelle, if you want to reach out to me, I can help you with some resources. And Melody is in the house and saying, Google confession of the Bible to confess. I think maybe there's a typo in that, but I'm not sure. Robin is saying, yep, they broke my camera. I'm not sure what that is. Stole something, broke my drawer, put my seats back in my old car, so much more. Yet they used to, that's how I always knew when I moved, when things were starting again, was that, whoops, sorry. It was that, was my car. That's how I always knew if I moved, and there would be this period of time where like everything was like, okay, things I used the first time I was like, whoo, I'm safe. I like escaped. And it was a couple months later when things started, but it always started with my car. I'm telling you, I wish I could show pictures on here of things, because it went everything from my car being catching on fire to, which is most extreme, doesn't generally happen, to the rear view mirror being turned upside down, or they kept doing this stuff to my seats, and I would spend hours and hours trying to get it cleaned up. It was some kind of residue or something, and I had the car had been set on fire. I had replaced the car. It was used, but it was very nice. Like, I had paid a lot of money, like even took out a loan. Just a really nice used car. And there kept being this residue in it. It was the strangest thing. And I have pictures of just piles and piles of paper towels. And I finally bought like one of those carpet cleaners that's mobile, because they just kept doing it. Tears, just everything. It was insanity. And so things like that, you can learn. There are cameras you can put on your inside window. Maybe that's what I started to do when I didn't have a lot of money. Was I bought this like $40 camera that would look out my window. It literally sticks on your window and faces out. Now, it's not surefire because it connects to Wi-Fi, but it was better than what I had before. And then, eventually I was able to get where I could put my car in somewhere safe, bought a dash cam. If you can get a dash cam that is hardwired, Best Buy will do it for like, I want to say $79. They will hardwire it. And then you can have parking mode, and motion will trigger it. So even if they come, they couldn't get in your car without it triggering the motion. So they're going to be caught on camera. These things are just deterrents. They're not foolproof, but they're deterrents. They are less likely to mess with someone else than you if they feel that they are going to get caught on camera. And I went through so much with cars. I'm telling you, cars and my pet, those two things. And yeah. So, Montana is in the house. Montana says hardwired non-wireless sounds awesome. Yes. Again, like the in dash cams have come way down in price. And just go to Best Buy. You can buy it like on Amazon or something, and then go to Best Buy and say, I need to have this hardwired. And that way they can't, even if they went to cut the power, it's connected to your battery, but internally. And so you can get dash cams as low as $50. But if they're hardwired and they have parking mode, that's what you want to look for, is that when motion triggers it, you will be sent a message. So even if they go to cut the wire, they have to get up under the like steering wheel, and they're going to be caught on camera. And make sure you look for the ones that depending on what's going on, there are ones that have like various views. Like when they hardwire it, they can also wire the back camera that goes in the back. And there are ones that see the inside of your car too. And so if you're really having issues and you want the parking mode, not just monitoring the outside, they're more expensive. You can have the inside monitored too. Yeah. And so yeah, I hope you're doing well, Montana. And so I'm going to let you guys go. It's been a couple hours now. I wanted to have Jamie on because I don't know anything about witchcraft, and I knew that was part of her story. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier in the comments about, and I didn't want to get too deep into that. And I'll probably change the thumbnail because she didn't talk about that. I knew that from having seen her about the other substance. And somebody, when the live stream first started, talked about that a lot of people seem to have come out of that environment, the substance that starts with an M. And I probably will change the thumbnail. Since she didn't offer it up, I didn't want to pry about that. But but I know it's in her content about it. So I think oh darn, I wish I would have asked her about that. I do think that it opens up that I used to think that they were just seeing things. My daughter got very in that, and that whole world is very dark. And it does oftentimes come out of it that I think because of the demonic influence there. I think also because they can pay those people fairly cheap to do things like, here, we'll give you this if you'll just do this against this person. And I used to think that she was just like seeing things, but I really have come to believe that perhaps it's like illegal access into the spiritual realm or something, and that maybe that veil is thinner and they are seeing things. I have heard too many stories. I meant to ask Jamie about that because, again, not my area of expertise, but I have known people that would just believe that, you swear that they have seen things, and their stories are so similar that it makes me wonder, because there are other substances where people have spiritual experiences like DMT. I mean, people talk publicly about that. There are content creators that talk about that in their spiritual encounters. with that. And it just makes me wonder if it's some kind of illegal access into the spiritual realm. I'm almost certain of it, but I can't prove it. So I try not to say things I can't prove. But I did mean to ask her about that. And but it feels right to me. Just they're all reporting the same things, like the same type events. And Melody's saying they seek people they can use, and I don't know if you mean perpetrators. I assume you mean perpetrators, and or if you mean like handlers that seek people that they can use against you. Both things are true for sure. Um, but yeah, and I'll read this from Blaze. Jesus was the ultimate warlock. Witchcraft can't touch the Lord. And yes, that substance is bad for you for sure. Open your spirit to the shadows, and you don't want to go there. My sister experienced the shadow people. Yeah, and my daughter also. And so that's what I mean. She would come over and thin as a rail and uh say, "Mom, don't you see like the across the street somebody's in the window or in the car?" And she would become so frustrated with me that I couldn't see this. And it's reported over and over and over. And normally, so like a hallucinogen or something, people don't see the same exact thing. So if you like read about people, like the CIA did, part of MK Ultra was the use of LSD, and they studied those people. And so those people don't all see the same thing. But what's interesting is that a couple of those, like the one we were just talking about, they see the same thing. They report the same things. The shadow people. Yeah. And so and Robin saying she had her brush, I think oh, with M. Yeah, I just don't know what I can say on here and what I can't, and I'm probably overly careful. And there might have been some things earlier even that shouldn't, that I might get like hit like a strike for. I don't know, but I tend to be extra careful. I think God spared me that. It's not that that I've made so many mistakes in my life, and thank goodness that's not something that I took to or became involved when. It's almost like God's protection. There is a legal substance that I can't even handle because I just can't. So but yeah, I think I was spared that. Montana is saying, I mean, tried to see what your daughter was seeing. Tried to see what your daughter was seeing. Sorry. Oh, you must have had something else above that. Okay, it says, "Oh, Stephanie, I love that you tried. I would have been a real pair with one of my kiddos if they were on that." And I was in panic triggered mode. Well, actually, it was before all of that happened. It was before all of that stuff the gang stalking had started. In fact, yeah, it's a very long story. But Montana, what actually saved me with her was I had just lost my oldest son. Um, I want to say I don't think it had been a year. And so I had friends of mine saying, "You cannot let your daughter in. You cannot let her in your house. You cannot, you got to worry about you." And because I had just lost my son, I couldn't, and right or wrong, I couldn't shut her out. I would try, and it was just too much. I thought, what if something happens to her? Now, it did come later. She got it together. She got married. She had a baby. And there was time. I'm trying to think. It's kind of all running together now. But there did come a time where I had to draw a firm line because of my grandchildren. So she got clean and got married and was doing really well, had a child, and then kind of had a run-in again, and at that point, it was down to, like, the grandkids or her, and so I had to draw a really hard line. But I think, Montana, because of the fact that I had lost my son, it was much harder for me to do that tough love thing. My ex-husband was perfect at it. Like, he has no problem with tough love. I right or wrong, I may have handled it. I probably would handle it differently today, but I think that was playing into my response. And um, so I love you guys. We've been on here forever, and I I I had hoped maybe you guys would put some stuff in the comments because I didn't want to pry too far into things. You know, I wanted to let her share what she wanted to share, but it's like witchcraft. That was strange. Anyway, my mic got muted, so I guess it's time for me to go, but I love you guys, and I hope you got something out of it, and if you're part of the safe community and you've been around for a while and your story is something that you wanna tell, I've offered that up before, you know, send me an email, and I'll meet with you one-on-one if you wanna talk about more specific tactics, more specific, you know, ways that you can there nothing is 100% but God, but, you know, various things, cars, homes, you know, your circle. If you just need somebody to talk to because you're being gaslit and you have nobody you can trust, I would have given anything for that, and it's why I do that. So, I love you guys, and you all have a great week. I will see you on Sunday, though. It won't be long. And I have a couple of videos already ready. So I love you guys and have a great night. Check out the member videos and all that good stuff. And I'll see you Sunday. God bless you.